What's up, everybody? Vintage here from Back 40 ADV. So I've actually had this on my wish list for a good long time, and of course, you know, finances and stuff take precedence over goodies in this household. But anyways, so before I actually had a dash, I'm going to pull this out for you. As you guys might remember, I made some sort of dash that went in between the bars, kind of like what the AE dash assembly here has, but I kind of started off going off of kind of what they were doing, but I ended up coming up with this. I used a cooking board sheet, or one of them little cutting boards, but that kind of got old, and of course paint's peeling and stuff like that, and I kind of wanted a little bit something that was more functional, and so I went and popped for the, get this, the $50 payment. Yeah, so like I said, finances take precedence over anything. But went ahead and bought the AE Motorsports. This company is out of, I believe, Venezuela. But they made a product for the DR650 dash, which really cool. Your turn signal lights and high beam assembly goes right there. Usually, if you want to pay extra, it comes with the ram mounts, little piece that goes there. Like I said, this goes in between your high-rise bars. And for those of you guys out there that have this and don't know how to put this together, this is the correct wiring pattern for setting it up. You've got an extra auxiliary switch. So this one switch right here controls both 12 volt cigarette light adapters, or auxiliary port, whatever you guys want to call them. But this is something you can set up for something else, maybe an auxiliary light or whatnot. But to me, it makes it easier because I don't have the traditional gauge anymore. I went with the Endurance 2, which I will actually be switching to a vapor here very, very shortly. Yeah, so once we get that vapor hooked up, it's gonna start looking pretty snazzy. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna take off, just get your fairing out of the way, and by unloosening up them bolts right there. And you take three, well, it might be different per, I got a different setup here, but this is a 3/4 nut underneath here. Probably millimeter, I don't know. But we're gonna loosen this up. We're gonna take the whole, the riser out of there, and it's actually gonna sit in between here and the riser itself and the triple tree top piece right here. So we're gonna take that off and slip it in between there. I got everything hooked up. Of course, like I said, goes in between these two pieces right here. So the triple tree top, that little spacer, then the dash, and then your risers and the clamp deals. But so one thing that I did notice that I should have done first is I should have plugged in the turn signal and the high beam light and the neutral switch. Should have plugged in those light bulbs before I connected everything, because they are really difficult to put in. Also, I had to, since I did get these Pro Taper, the wider bars, of course they came with wider bolts, so I had to pretty much wallow out that hole and make them bigger to fit that Pro Taper bar. So just a heads up for those people that have the bigger bars on theirs, and this whole setup, you're gonna have to make those holes a little bit wider. So we're gonna do the same thing that we did with our lighting, as if you guys remember, where I ran the wires all the way down the frame, kind of wrapped them up nice and snug and out of the way from everything else. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna run our wires. I'm gonna loosen this up and run the whole wiring bundle same way. I'm gonna run it down there and hook it up the same way I hooked up the battery. Got some stock metal from the local hardware store, and I made a T-bracket. It's like a little T-bracket, but as you can see, the pre-drilled holes that were there for the speedometer before, using those holes, and it kind of bent it up a little bit. I'm gonna have to trim this up a little bit. It's a little bit bigger than I was wanting it, but I might bend it in a little bit and bring it down, but and then pretty it up with the edges there. That looks like it would cut you pretty good. We're gonna put the Endurance 2 on there, and you know, luckily I made it big enough so when I do get the Vapor or the Voyager, we can just reuse this mount. All right, guys, so this is the final piece of the puzzle here of installing, I guess this section of it, where new bracket or whatnot. It's a rough, it's a little bit rough shape, the metal, but I had to kind of drill some other little holes in here, but I think it ended up turning out pretty decent with the fairing on it. It looks pretty good. I was still able to use my TTO gauge for my temperature gauge and drilled some holes for the Endurance 2 to fit in there. I wanted to make it big enough, of course, so I could put the Vapor on there a little bit later on down the road when I do get it, or the Voyager, whichever one I decide to get. But yeah, so this is the installation of the AE dash and making the another little dash for my Endurance 2. Yes, we got everything all bundled up and tucked away. I actually am very impressed with how this actually looks. Turned out, I think it's a lot better than the dash that I made. The only problem that I did notice is my pad here is actually sections of it covering up like my neutral switch down here, so I'd probably end up taking that off. But other than that, everything is functional. The cigarette light adapters, or the cigarette light here, they're all waterproof, and they work very well. Hooked back up my gauges, everything's good to go. But yeah, looks pretty good. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully this helped somebody who might want to do something similar to this. But this is Vintage. I appreciate you joining me once again. We'll see you guys out on the trail.